Oh, shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And we are getting bogged down this morning, boggier even than my prostate, because, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us the one, the only, the New York legendary broadcaster, Bill Boggs, staring at us from his telephone there. He has won 4 Emmy Awards, count them 4. I don't even know 4 women named Emmy, come to think of it. But he's done that. You've seen him on Midday Live. He used to have a show on Food Network called Bill Boggs' Corner Table. He's done Comedy Tonight. He's been on WNEW for a bunch of years. And now, look at him waving there, because he's most proud over the past few years of transitioning from on-camera work to behind the computer and typewriter work, because he's written 4 books, including 2 about a dog, Spike the Wonder Dog. Well, we have the wonderful Bill Boggs with us. Shalom, Bill!
May your memory be a blessing when this is over.
Thank you. I mean, I'm growing memories as we speak. But Bill, so first of all, mazel tov on the books. On this, where did you know what, we'll roll it back. Let's talk about the TV stuff first. Because you went to, what was it, the Annenberg Journalism School?
I went to a school, a member of the Ivy League. People get it mixed up with Penn State, University of Pennsylvania, in my hometown of Philadelphia. It was much, believe me, Rabbi, it was much easier to get in than it would be now. And I had an undergraduate degree in sociology and English, but then I stayed on and got a master's in communications. And it was a really wonderful, just 1 year, a master's in 1 year, had a great time. So I'm from Philadelphia. At the time, really, I didn't see what the value of being at such a prestigious school like Penn would be. But it's turned out over the years that I'm really glad I went there. My whole goal with school was just get through. I was like a B student. And once I got an A, once I got a C, I guess that adds up to B, A and C. So I just, I got out of graduate school and I took there's a lesson here in this story. Okay. I got out of graduate school and I took the first job that was offered to me, even though I wanted to go in the show business and wanted to do what I've ended up doing. And it was a company in Lancaster, PA, still exists, Armstrong World Products. And they manufacture all kind of ceiling tile, floor tiles, plastic containers. But the money they were offering was phenomenal. So I took the job, moved to Lancaster, PA, got a car, had an apartment, and it took me about 3 weeks to realize that I had trapped myself in an immensely boring job, writing speeches for executives. The movie Executive Suite was written about the Armstrong Core Company. Anyway, while there, one of my very good friends, Jay Tarsis, one of the funniest people I've ever known in my life, knew him from the beach in Ocean City for 4 years. He was working for Alan Funt, who had a show called Candid Camera, but Jay was only making $100 a week. He had 1 child, another child on the way. So I suggested, Jay, why don't you come down to Armstrong? It's boring, but they pay very well. So they hired Jay Tarsis, and then as fate would have it, Jay was sitting next to a guy whom I did not know named Tom Patchett, and they started writing comedy routines because they're both very funny guys. Now, this is where the story is, the learning experience is.
Right. Get your thinking caps on. Yes.
Get your receiving, open the receptors. So I was walking down the hall one day, and Tom and Jay were doing a comedy routine about a toll taker with the paper back and forth on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And they had these 3 secretaries across the wall who were really laughing. So I watched. I said, what is this? We hate our jobs as much as you do. We're just writing comedy routines on the side. I said, you have others? Yeah, we got about 6, 7 others. Do one. They started doing this routine, and it was in the category of quality of writing and delivery of Mike Nichols and Elaine May. It was excellent. I saw this immediately, being a lifelong fan of comedy and having been in the comedy team myself. In the middle of this
Oh,
routine,
wait a minute, stop. Oh, now, wait, I'm going to stop you there. What had you done stand up, or what had you done to that point? Because you were just in college and then got a job. Where were you in college?
in high school, I had a comedy. I was part of a two-man comedy team, and then in college, the two-man comedy team kept working for a while.
Oh, okay.
But I've always loved the world of comedy. So I had this blinding revelation, this stuff is great. I'll book them around, and if it catches on, we'll quit our jobs and go into show business. 5 months later, my friend, they were on the Merv Griffin daytime television show. 5 months later. Then they were on Joey Bishop. Then they were on Hollywood Palace, and they were playing around, and we made more money collectively the first year that we had at Armstrong. So the learning lesson there is, if you are hit with a bolt of lightning, as the French say, a coup de foudre idea, the lesson there is to follow up on it. I didn't say, well, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know. I'd have to be selling them. I just knew I could. I instinctively knew that I could sell this big talent. And then went on ending up writing for Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, Carol Burnett, a Muppet movie, very successful men, Patch and Tart.
But I'm curious, you being a comedy person already yourself, having been in a comedy team, didn't you balk sort of at being a manager rather than say, hey, we could be a trio. We should be, the Ritz Brothers or something.
No, I never considered being the Three Stooges or the Ritz Brothers. But what happened was I knew I had opened the door for myself to the world of show business, and that, yes, this isn't exactly what I wanted to do. My mother told me I used to walk around the house with a pencil when I was 5 years old, pretending to interview people. So after I was very satisfied managing the comedy team, even though I was in the background. So after about 2.5 years of managing, Thanksgiving, I was home for Thanksgiving with the family, and my mother, we didn't have a dishwasher, so my mother and I she's washing and I'm drying. And she says, well, how are you doing, Bill? How do you feel about what you're doing, pushing for the boys? And she was well aware of this. I said, well, it's exciting. I mean, we were accomplishing things. Then she said, but I thought you always wanted to be the one out front, not behind the scenes. I thought your dream was to be on television. I said, yeah, that's true. You're right. And she said, don't forget that. So when an opportunity came along, about a month and a half later, to be a producer of a talk show, associate producer of a talk show in Philadelphia, and on camera once a week, I took that job, and Tom and Jay went from being managed by Bill Boggs, selling on his father's black rotary phone, to the great Bernie Brillstein managing agency on Beverly Hills.
Yeah, but it worked out for you too, because you got what you wanted.
Yeah,
you got on camera and you got to associate produce, so you got a bit of the best of both worlds. And
thank you.
oh well, no, thank you. It's mazel tov for you. And then you built and built and built from there. Was that still in Pennsylvania? Were you still in PA at that point when you were on the?
Yeah, I was living in my parents' house, living with my parents, and we come up to New York, and Sylvester Stallone and his brother, Frank, had been in my high school, and I knew their mother, and Mrs. Felitti would let us stay at this spare apartment that they had. We Philadelphians stick together.
Do you have any Stallone stories? Do you have any, or Frank Stallone, brother, any memories, any anecdotes?
Well, I was in addition to managing the comedy team, I had to bring in more money. As my father said, Philadelphia's a city where you hustle and make a living. So I was a frequent substitute teacher. And the Philadelphia school system paid $23 a day back in the mid-'60s. And in one of my classes was a young man named Frank Stallone. And he had a band called The American Tragedy. And so for a while, I managed the band. I got them booking the pen and places around. But since managing wasn't my main goal, that sort of fell away. So fast forward to 1975, the only time I've ever been at the Oscars. I was there with my girlfriend, Francine Lefrac, and backstage at the Oscars, there's Stallone, Sylvester Stallone, holding his Academy Award. And I said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Bill Boggs." He said, "Hey, you manage my brother's act. You manage." So that's where I met him. And anytime, and I've seen him over the years. We both have places in Palm Beach. He's charming, friendly. He's just a really regular guy. And I love his series. I'm going to plug this slide. Tulsa King, Sunday night.
And by the way, I had no idea that you just threw another name in there, Francine Lafrac. Is she of the Lafrac dynasty of building like Starrett City or whatever that? I didn't know you dated.
Well, a lot of people don't know my dating history. You know, it's a long and colorful one. And when I first came, I'm telling you the truth. It is.
You are. No, you were married 4 times. No fan, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, wait a second. The first one was annulled. But in a long life, look, I'm 84 years old now. In a long life, marriages happen. One died. One was annulled. The one was Trevor's mother, and the other was a dear friend of mine, Leslie Brennan, to this day. So it all worked out okay.
Did you ever date anybody famous, even more famous than Francine Lafrac?
I don't, something. People have 3 lives: a public life, a private life, and a secret life. So I don't like to talk about it. There's a couple of names I could mention. I just don't want to go with
the initials even. Can we guess? No, was it
CB? Now you have to take it from there.
Okay. I was going to go GM, maybe Golda Meir at some point because she was out there in Milwaukee, but no.
As far Jewish as I got was Francine. Oh no! And for 10 years, my girlfriend was Jane Rothschild. This is a lovely Jewish woman who had never been married, never lived with anybody. And over the course of, we were together actually 13 and a half years. Over the course of the 13 and a half years, near the end, the last couple of years, by her own admission, she started to become more Jewish. She started contributing more and doing things like that. She never went to temple once. And then near the end, she said, "Bill, you're not Jewish." And I said, it's taking me a while to figure that out. And she decided she didn't want to be with me anymore.
Literally because of the, oh my.
That was one of the reasons. Oh. She also didn't like living with somebody else and she'd been a loner all her life. So she left, I like to say she ran off with herself. But we had a lot of fun together.
And by the way, since you mentioned the last name, are we talking about a scion of the Rothschilds or no?
Oh, the S is not in there.
Oh, it's a totally different.
She's a really, really good, intelligent woman. We had a great run.
Mazel tov. By the way, are you seeing anybody now? I mean, you said you're friends with your last wife, but is there a Boggs person?
No. I have female friends I go out with, but I'm not involved in any living together relationship. I think the only thing I really miss after Jane left me around with herself was the warmth of sleeping together at night. Now I get up in the middle of the night to, you know what, and I'm by myself. It's all dark. But my life has been so wonderful. I don't want to make myself into a victim. I'm in that very, very high, small percentile of people who've made their dreams come true, been healthy, and had wonderful relationships.
Lullaby on the health too, mazel tov. And you know what? For the warmth in the bed, there's hookers. Not that I would, but I'm just saying if they're there,
we all live your life.
So let's get back to, so you were managing Patchett and Tarsus when they were as a comedy team before they were writing. Then you got on camera. How did you make the jump to New York?
Well, it involved leaving Philadelphia. I made a New Year's resolution going into 1972 that I would go anywhere in the country to get my own talk show. Now, I had been working on a very good show in Philadelphia with big ratings, and I was on once a week. And Philadelphia is like the 3rd or 4th largest market. So that really helped. I was willing to go to anywhere. I ended up going to an ABC affiliate in High Point, North Carolina, where I created a show called Southern Exposure with Bill Boggs. I produced it together with a man who would become my lifelong, who was my intern, and then he became associate producer, my lifelong friend and former business partner, Richard Baker. And I'm happy to say that for the 3 years we were on the air, we beat the Today Show in local ratings. So that was very successful. And then I got an offer to go to Miami to host a show, San Francisco or New York, almost about the same time. And I left High Point behind, and I've never forgotten how much it meant to me. I remember driving away down my road that I lived on, looking at it in the rearview mirror, fading away. I thought, never forget you could come back to something like this. I haven't, but it was such a creative time.
Yeah, I have to ask, how crazy was that? Because not only were you hosting a show at that point several days a week, but you also had to produce it, which meant you didn't have to hire the crew or pay the crew. I mean,
Okay, just booking the show, getting the guests.
Okay, yeah.
Which, I mean, it's all phone work, talking people in. The interesting thing here, Rabbi, is High Point, North Carolina is between Washington and Atlanta, obviously. So I knew the bookers, I knew the PR people from my 3 years in Philadelphia, but they said, no, these are so-called sophisticated New Yorkers who only display ethnocentrism, and they said, well, we don't send guests south of Atlanta. And I said, well, we're in the Midway, and I had to get a cartoon drawn up that showed Washington, and then it showed High Point, and then it showed Atlanta. And as a result of that, we got a phenomenal guest. Now, look, let me plug something that is not a commercial enterprise. I have a YouTube channel called BILL BOGGS TV. On that YouTube channel are about 500 videos from interviews I've done as recently as a couple months ago, all the way back to High Point, North Carolina, where there's like a highlight reel of several shows. BILL BOGGS TV. You can spend a lot of time entertaining yourself by, not because of me, but because of the guests we had on. Name like 4 big names from the last century. Just come up with some names.
When you want me to okay. Orson Welles. Did you ever get to talk to Orson?
No.
Oh, sorry. All right.
That's one down.
One down. All right. Okay. What about one of the Kennedys? John F. or Bobby?
Ted Kennedy.
Before or after he killed the girl in the car?
No, it was after Chappaquiddick.
After, all right. But did you have to be nice, or could you mention?
Look, it had been dry cleaned, that subject. It was on the show several years after that happened.
Did you ever get, let's see, Jimmy Stewart?
Yes, Jimmy Stewart. I interviewed when I was still at High Point. I used to go on junkets for movies. And one of his last movies was called Fool's Parade. And I went down there and interviewed Jimmy Stewart, and they had an actual parade down Wheeling, West Virginia. And they asked me to ride in one of the cars as one of the female stars of the movie. That was a great experience. That's when I was still in Philadelphia.
Wow. Okay. I'm pretty good. I've gotten 2 out of 3 here of the.
Yeah, you win.
So who, though, would be like your favorite, even before hitting New York, like the interview that you would just pinch yourself that you still did?
Easy for me to answer that. Frank Sinatra. I did the longest interview of his career. The first time he ever appeared on a talk show, I mean, if you discount the Tonight Show, Frank Sinatra, and had been a lifelong Sinatra fan. The interview was in 1975. I snuck into the 500 Club in Atlantic City to see Frank Sinatra. I snuck in dressed as a busboy, and I totally fell in love with Frank Sinatra and his work. The man really could command the stage. And when he sang the ballads, you could just feel the emotion coming from him. And so it was a distinct pleasure to, so I'll tell you the whole story. So after I saw Frank at the 500 Club, a couple times a year, I'd have a recurring dream. It was a pleasant dream. I'm sitting in a chair talking to Frank, right? Sometimes it is Frank. Sometimes it looks like a different person, but it's still Frank. So I was set to go to Las Vegas, Easter weekend, 1975, woman I was dating, it was her birthday. She said, meet me in Las Vegas. We'll go to see Elvis and Sinatra on the same night. So I had good contacts with Sinatra's office because I knew Sammy Davis Jr. And she got Elvis, I got Frank. And she was a heavy drinker and doing a lot of cocaine and stuff. So at a certain point, she was so out of it, she just went up to the room. Now it's about 2 in the morning. And I thought, here I am in Vegas. I've been there a couple of times with the comedy team. And I just was wandering around, taking it in, and coming toward me is Jilly Rizzo, Sinatra's right-hand man, again, whom I met and knew me from Sammy Davis Jr. And if you want the Sammy Davis Jr. story, I can give you that one.
Yes,
too.
he's Jewish, you know. Or he's dead, but he's also Jewish, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So I ran it. Jilly Rizzo said to me, Bill, would you like to meet Frank? Oh, I forgot. So the morning that listen, I'm sorry about this.
No, fine.
The morning that, just rewind a moment. The morning I'm set to go to Vegas to meet Elaine and go to Elvis and Sinatra, I woke up in the middle of the most vivid Frank Sinatra dream I had ever had. He's sitting across from me. I'm sitting across from him. We're talking with great intensity. And my eyes opened, and I thought, this is a precognitive dream. I'm going to meet Frank Sinatra, and he's going to come and be on midday, and it happened.
All right, there's your Frank story, and I hope it was a nice interview. He seemed like we've heard stories. But
Fabulous. And that portions of that interview are available on Bill Boggs TV, as well as an hour-long interview with Sammy Davis, Sean Connery, a lot of different people there.
Now, do you have a Sammy story?
I don't earn a dime from it. It's there for posterity.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's huge. I've interviewed people who have long careers in the showbiz, and I want to say, well, where are the archives? They might have been on radio or something. Can we hear them? And they say, well, in my basement, in my garage, I've got reels of tape, and I haven't. I'm like, you're not getting any younger. This is what you have to do. But do you have a Sammy story? Because you said you already knew him pretty well.
I did. Very, extremely gracious man. So the story is this. One of the jobs I had while I was managing the comedy team, I stopped being a substitute teacher. I was working as assistant dean of men at the University of Pennsylvania, 4 days a week, managing the team, selling them, they were booking. I didn't have to be with them at all times. So the phone rings, and it's a man named Ken Roberts, who's about my age. He had just graduated from college, and he formed a company called University Concert Productions. He had this great idea, take big-name nightclub performers and book them on campuses. So he is pitching Sammy Davis to be at the Palestra at the University of Pennsylvania. To me, this is a no-brainer, right? But in order to get an event on campus, I was an administrator, assistant dean of men, you have to go through basically the student council. So I go to the student council, which 60-70% were guys who had, these are all men, who had been to really swanky, posh private schools before coming to Penn. A little bit snobby, maybe. And so I pitch them, and 2 of them look at each other and say, we don't want that N-word on this campus. So this sort of enraged me. I pulled back. I went to the other assistant dean, Paul Hiller, great guy, and I said, we got to put the show on somehow. So we were both former presidents of our fraternities, and we went to the Interfraternity Council, got them to sponsor Sammy Davis, sold out every seat in the Palestra. The story was on the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer the morning after the show. And the Interfraternity Council put it on, but the student council was so pissed off at me for doing this that they got my transcripts out. They were just bad-mouthing me. I was an assistant dean. But anyway, that's how I met Sammy. And that opened I like to say, that's how I made my bones with the Rat Pack. Because before Sammy's show, he was in a dressing room, and then I and about 4 people were in the anteroom. And the only thing he wanted, by the way, was a bottle of great Manischewitz wine. So somebody says, oh, to Ken Roberts, somebody says, Ken, you have no idea what Bill had to go through to get this show here. What do you mean? Tells Ken the story. Sammy hears it. Sammy comes out and says, you're my friend. He gives me a big hug. And that's how I met Sammy Davis Jr. And as I like to say, that's how I made my bones with the Rat Pack.
Wow. So, I guess you met Lawford, and I forget who else was in there. Who are the...
Joey Bishop, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr.
And did you interview most of them at some point? Dino and...
I never interviewed or met Dean, which I regret. Dean Martin is one of the king of cool. There's a documentary film, you can still find it, called The King of Cool, Dean Martin.
Yeah.
And they interviewed me extensively about that. Yeah. The same company that did the series Mafia Spies, Tom Donahue, a great producer. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, what I also want to get from North Carolina to, because the reason people my age from New York would know you is because you were on in the syndicated, you were on in New York on midday and WNEW TV. So, you were pulled away, you were in that car leaving this beloved North Carolina position, and then you hit the big city, not looking back, really. So what are your great memories of coming to New York and making it big in the big town?
It was a good, partly bad. In High Point, North Carolina, I had been completely in charge, together with Richard Baker and a woman named Buffy Queen, of everything I wanted to do on the show. The show was great. It beat the Today Show. The general manager of the station couldn't believe how well we had done in the first ratings book. So when I came to New York, Rabbi, I didn't have that kind of control. I had people saying, we're producing you. They say, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. And that was uniquely frustrating. Now, as the years passed, it improved. But many times I had ideas for something I wanted to do that I would have done in North Carolina that would have done very well, that they just would reject my ideas. That was the negative part. The good part was, hey, the swinging 70s, the roaring 20s have nothing of the 70s. To come as a young, virile bachelor to New York City in 1975, to be there the opening night of Studio 54 and have a friend who operated Xenon and go to nightclubs, Copacabana. It was just great. I love music.
Can I ask you, how did you stay away from, or maybe you didn't, like you had one girlfriend who was with the drugs and the drinking and the thing. Were you a good boy, or did a lot of things go up your nose?
The cocaine, I tried it. It's a drug where too much is never enough. And you can't it's cut, in this country, it's cut with speed, or it was then. You can't get to sleep. I never have been to Colombia, Bogota, but if you're down there, you can get cocaine that just gives you a tremendous lift and you can go to sleep, everything. Because I had a friend who was a director of the ballet down there and told me all about it. No, I have essentially only been a smoker of marijuana in my life. I still smoke marijuana. I have like one hit before a music show or something. I have very good pot. The pot these days is so much better than it was back then. And I see it as no different than a cocktail, none whatsoever. You have a cocktail or wine, whatever, to sort of change your reality a little bit. Same with pot.
And so none of this ever affected you on camera. You could go out, party at Xenon, and then be up at 7 a.m. to whatever. Or
I had the strength to do stuff like that. But at a certain point, you have to go home. I mean, you got it.
Yeah.
You have to have 6-7 hours sleep. That's it.
Besides this one, what is the worst interview that you ever had to deal with?
Well, we had a new producer of the show. And for 3 segments, I was interviewing children of Holocaust survivors, okay?
I don't know why I'm laughing, but okay, yeah.
No, this is not funny. Now, I said to the new producer, you should not do this. No, well, I'm producing you. We're going to do this. So the 4th segment, after meeting these people, hearing their dreadful stories about their parents, he books a Holocaust denier. And so I bring him up, I introduce him, I reintroduce the other three people, and I say to them, you know, I think you should just get off the set. I don't want to interview you. And he left. So I refused to interview him. Yeah.
Okay, that's a question.
Oh, yeah, wait. And the producer got fired because the general manager said, what the hell are you doing? He was out of there.
It really isn't a horrible, and I have horrible taste, but I can't even imagine the tastelessness. But what was there a performer, an actor, a singer, whatever that you tried to interview that was just so like, oh, you thought it'd be great, and it's like,
Lee Marvin was so drunk that he had to be helped up to the seat. This was a taping. And I like this. He must have like 3 martinis at lunch. And so that kind of, we actually couldn't put it on the air. It just was a waste of time.
And let me also ask you then, speaking of taste and speaking of that, I had you down here as a producer of the Morton Downey Jr. show. Now, people remember him. He was, the idea of trash TV or like
that show invented trash TV. People say the Jerry Springer show was like the Morton Downey Jr. show. It's partly true. The Jerry Springer show was a normal host with crazy guests. The Downey show was normal guests with a crazy host.
Right.
And the guy was really talented, but he was extremely self-destructive. But as Regis Philbin, name dropping, said to me, the Downey show is the fastest rise and fall in the history of television. And the people behind it were really successful. My bosses were the guys who created MTV.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. But what did you do for the show? Were you his team?
I was executive producer. I was in charge of the show. I was in charge of the staff. I was in charge of the subjects. And I always believed, I just read a book about leadership saying, if you have good people, delegate and let them do their thing. And I would say if I did anything well, I really delegated well to my staff.
But how was he? Was it an act? You said he was a self-destructive person, but when he was on camera, was he appreciably different from when the actual Morton Downey would get?
Yeah, he was a performance artist. He would go out in the camera and do this stuff. You could say, okay, before the show, like an hour and a half, tonight we're doing women in the military. Which side do you want to be on? Yes or no? Like a lawyer. Say, I'm going to be on no. Then we start writing the show. If I'm in a foxhole and I got machine guns firing overhead, I don't want to be in that foxhole with a double D woman I got to be looking at. That's more.
So there was a calculation to it. He wasn't that crazy, even off camera.
He was just like a fox. He was just self-destructive.
But what are some other memories of your doing New York? Like we talked about the famous people you got to interview when you in North Carolina. Who are your great memories chatting with in New York on like midday and so forth?
Well, I like Dionne Warwick very much. I like Barry.
You're halfway. Speaking off camera, you're
sorry. Yeah. Barry Manilow, James Brown. Little Richard.
James Brown. Like now, this was before he was on PCP and he lost his mind. He was like normal. When was this?
I don't remember the exact date, but he wasn't on drugs. He was actually on the show speaking out against drugs. Excuse me, I have to get a drink. Okay. And let's see, Sean Connery, right? A couple of us. But there's some good names for you.
So what is your suggestion? Like if there are budding people who want to go into the MC hosting kind of show, they're podcasting for interviews, what have you learned in your many, many years doing what you do? What are suggestions of like, here's the way you should interview people?
I think that the listening is crucial, meaning you're talking
Sorry,
to
did
me.
You just say something? I missed.
You're talking to me, and you don't have a big list of questions. You know what you want to talk about. So like when I'm answering one question, you're not thinking, now I'm going to ask about this. You're just letting the conversation to flow. And so that involves trusting yourself and listening. It's really no different than having a conversation with somebody sitting across from you in a chair, except there's a more performance aspect to it. Meaning, if you and I were sitting in my apartment talking about this, I wouldn't be quite as demonstrative and projecting in the way I am now.
Neither would I. Neither would I.
No, that's more than Daddy Jr.
You wrote, speaking of flipping to a question I actually have written here, you wrote a book about successful people who have, quote, what it takes.
Yeah.
What does it take?
There's a book.
Of course, the guy.
That is Success Got What It Takes.
Yeah.
Successful people reveal how they made it to the top. Now, this is an idea I've had for a long time, to use my interviewing skills to interview people, not about business decisions, but about the internal qualities that made them successful. And the book got very good reviews. In fact, there's one or two schools that use Got What It Takes. I would say anybody watching, believe me, the book's been out a long time. I'm not saying this to make a dime from it. I already made my money. But a parent with say, graduating from high school or college, this would be an excellent gift. Got What It Takes? Successful people reveal how they made it to the top.
Well, if you were to crunch down from those pages a theme that ran through many, many of the folks that you interviewed.
Everybody asked me that question. You know, I think that the answer, there are several answers. The one I like best is that find a passion, something you're passionate about, and follow your passion. Exhibit A, look at you.
Well, yeah, well, mine involves handcuffs and bubble bath, but we won't really go there. We're talking, by the way, with Bill Boggs. We want to remind you that you can go to his YouTube channel, Bill Boggs TV, to watch more than 500 of his interviews stretching back over decades.
That's
Plus,
true.
You are also the author not only of that book, Got What It Takes, but tell us about Spike.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, behind your head, we see, that's right, that's the middle of it. This is a Spike Unleashed, The Wonder Dog Returns. And the first one is The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog, okay? So these books are hard-hitting social observation satire. Satire is ridicule and exaggeration. So the books are written and narrated, are narrated by Spike the Wonder Dog, the dog, just like The Art of Racing in the Rain and a couple of other, Call the Wild, have been narrated by dogs. And I had no idea before I sat down to write the book that I had the ability to write, a very facile ability to write satire, ridicule, and exaggeration. What happened was my last TV show, which was for the AARP, no one ever mentions, it was a really nice show. In fact, I forgot the name of it. But anyway, when that went off the air, it's called My Generation. I was standing right over there in my living room, right over there, and I thought, I'm 75 years old, 70, whatever it was. I've been chasing jobs all my life. I've been very aggressive in charting my own path, as Sinatra would sing. And I did it pretty much my way. So nothing's going to happen on TV anymore. I don't think no one's looking for me. If I had an affiliation, like I was at Food Network for 12 years, once you have an affiliation like that, but you know what happened? After 12 years in the Food Network, they let Sarah Moulton, David Rosengarten, me, and one other person go because they wanted younger people. And we were 40, 30, 40 years old, I know. Anyway, so I just decided, I had this idea. I had a dog in North Carolina on Southern Exposure who was an English Bull Terrier with a spot on his eye, right? And the dog was very funny. The dog wasn't that smart, but he was funny. Bring him to the show, and he had his own chair, and he'd start out looking at a guest. The lights are very hot. He'd be looking at a guest gradually. He'd fall asleep. People loved this. He got more mail than I did. Shortly before coming to New York, he was killed by a drunk driver. Horrible. So I had the idea, gee, well, I don't know if I had the G part in there. What if Spike hadn't been killed and came to New York in today's world with a talk show host like me, a guy like a lot like me, but not me, not an exact me,
No, that's right. Yeah,
and became a huge television and social media star, bringing in on social media.
Yeah.
And that was the idea. But the thing is, I just sat down to do my girlfriend Ishbel, a woman I really love and care about. Unfortunately, she lives in nearby Brazil, but she had been up here. I said, no, I got to write it. But you know me, how busy I am. She said, look, and this is for anyone who says they want to write a book. One day, when you have little time, sit down and see what happens. And what happened? 2 books came out of it.
Man,
Thank you,
awesome.
Ishbel.
How do people get these? Do you have a website? Where can people buy?
You have to come to my house.
Oh.
I pay me in cash. No, these books are available on Amazon. So let's review the books.
Yes.
The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog, the original book about, let's see, Winston Groom. Is probably the last book he read. Remember, he wrote Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
He said, Bill Boggs and his friend Spike unleashed comedic wizardry in this madcap, highly entertaining, satirical novel. Okay? And then the second one is a little bit, picks up a little bit about a year after the first one ending, and it's called The Adventures of Spike. It's called Spike Unleashed. So you have The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog, Spike Unleashed, and I know that you're not going to believe this, but one of the people who read the book, I had just met him through a friend of mine, Bob Merrill, was Mike Reese, one of the creators of the Simpsons.
The Simpsons, yes.
Yeah. So I said, Mike, if I send you a book, would you read it and give me a blurb? Yeah. 3 weeks later, this is part of the blurb, and he was serious. Not since Voltaire has someone written such an epic. Bill's written an amazingly funny book and so hip. Let's see. Brian Cox said the book is an absolute delight in such a brilliantly acerbic comic manner. Joe Piscopo, a witty, timeless, satirical gem, and a fun read. The books are designed. I will refund the money of anyone who buys the books, and they're like $18, $15. Who reads the whole book and doesn't laugh out loud. I'll refund the money.
But what's really interesting is that you were so known in your New York years. I know you obviously from the Carolinas or from Philly, but as being kind of a very gentle, I don't want to say bland, but kind of a nice talk show. No one would get the...
I'll hang up, but you can say bland.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying this satire and the dark side and the humor, you kind of had to subsume. People didn't see you as like a Letterman type or a Stern type. You sort of came off as more of a Phil Donahue type, if we will.
Just another aspect of my personality. Yeah, and a friend of mine said, people might be skeptical about this because they don't want to give you 2 things. They don't want to think, hey, he won 4 Emmys in talk shows. What's he doing as a writer? I don't understand. I think pigeonholing people is really a terrible thing.
Yes. Yeah, and it's really bad for the pigeons because they bleed. But I don't even know what that means. I'm sorry. But no, it's what do you feel though that now that you're mostly off camera, you don't have a show that you're hosting regularly, and you can put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, that you can let out a side that you sort of had to keep hidden when you were on TV, because now you could be.
I didn't feel I had to keep it hidden.
Oh,
writing is just a different process than talking to people on television. It's just writing is like having it, for me, it's like having a movie going off in my head. Now, I'm old enough to be a child of radio. I had a little radio when I was 4 years old, and so we're talking about mid to late 40s. And so on the radio, there were dramatic programs, acting. There were comedy shows, Jack Benny and Phil Harris and so forth. And as Bill Cosby said many years ago before he became what happened, he said, radio is a theater of the mind. You would lie or sit there with your eyes closed visualizing it. And that happened to me And when I started writing a book, the first book I wrote was called At First Sight, which is a romantic novel. But that was 1980. It just was like a movie was going off in my head when I was writing about it.
Well, can I ask, before we let you go, Bill Boggs, is there a Spike 3, or is there another book that's
I
coming out
think
here?
that if there is another book, it would probably be called End of the Tale, a Spike book.
Yeah.
In it, I think Spike would perish, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. You know, I have to. If I do something, I got to commit to it. It's a lot of work, and I just don't know. I am going to be writing 300-word observational pieces for a website that has thousands and hundreds of thousands of readers. I'm going to start that. Actually, I was going to start it this afternoon, but I have burned enough energy doing this. I can wait until tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's going to be observational things about where I live. I have a home in East Hampton. I'm here in Manhattan, and I rent a place in Palm Beach for 4 months a year. So
Man,
I'm
I
going
need
to
to get in your will. Holy crap, that's fantastic. God bless
no,
you.
because I'm renting that place. There's not that much left in my will.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been chatting with the delight. I've got to say, I do absolutely mean this. Among the guests who have been on this program over our past 24 years, the best very often tend to be people who are media folks and hosts and interviewers themselves. Well, among them have been Dick Cavett, one of the best guests we've ever had. You're up
Welcome.
there. You too, Bill Boggs. You're so delightful and so well spoken and so fun. I'm just one of the. All I can do is invite you back at some point to come and tell more stories and
Oh
more
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
I'll come back. I like doing this. As I said early on, it's self-deprecating. I like talking about myself. It's fun. And by the way, I want to compliment you. You
Please.
really are a exceptional host. First off, you project a lot of energy. I couldn't be answering your questions like, well, I'll tell you. I think that you bring the energy level of your guests up. And you're fun, you're funny, you're really listening, you have a quick comedic sense. And this act you do as a rabbi, that just has a twist to it where people think, yeah, I know, it's all a costume coming down. Anyway, thank you very much.
Bill Boggs, thank you so much to you two. We hope to see you soon. And everybody, go to his YouTube channel, Bill Boggs TV, and go get his books. Thank you. And shalom and happy holidays to you too.
I have one question for you.
Please, yes.
It's gonna be, you cut it off there.
No, well, all right.
I'd like to be able to have a link so I can put this on my YouTube channel. It's so good.
Well, yeah, please. What happens is after the program airs,
Yeah.
we take the segment will be available on YouTube. It'll be available there, and we can send you the MP4 or the M4A or the IHG, whatever it is. We'll send you, and you can put it. Please project it on the side of your house.
I will. Yeah, I will. So I'll rely on you to get back to me on that. You have my email address, correct?
I do believe, yes, or send it to me. I know I have your Facebook thingy, but I probably have your email address too if we corresponded. Maybe I might have it in Hebrew, so you might have to resend it as well in English. Yeah. But Bill Boggs, thank you again. Shalom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.